Everybody, and welcome to the National At Home Dad Network's monthly webinar series. My name is Matt Strain, and we'd love to welcome you all here aboard. We're here today with the folks from responsibility.org to talk about modeling responsibility, both some of the alternatives and to alcoholic beverages in the way of non-alcoholic beverages, how to talk to your kids about underage drinking, and how to model responsible behavior for your kids. So with us today, we have Tim McMichael. We also have Brent Almond. And we have Sam Matthews. Sam is the Vice President of Communications and Branding. And Brent Almond is a parenting blogger who also is associated with the outreach program that they have with the responsibility.org. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Sam and let him give us a little bit of background about responsibility.org.
Thanks, Matt. How we doing, everybody? Sorry, I'm joining from my phone. My computer decided to not cooperate all of a sudden. So thanks for bearing with us. As Matt said, I'm Sam Matthews. I am Responsibility.org's Vice President of Communications and Branding. Been with the company organization now for about 7 years total. In that time, our programming has evolved with the times, and part of that was making sure we were reaching the parent audience. And to do that, there was no better voice, no better channel than the parents themselves. And we, really appreciate you, Matt, and all the dad parenting bloggers who we've worked with over the years to get our messaging out and help parents, come to terms with the fact that they need to talk with their kids about alcohol and underage drinking and the dangers of underage drinking, and model responsible behavior for them. So that's one of our core missions. We are funded by the many of America's leading distilled spirits companies, and our mission is sort of threefold. So we're here to eliminate underage drinking, stop impaired driving, and promote responsible consumption. And so this aligns with the first of those, which is to eliminate underage drinking and work with you to do that. So thanks for having us.
Well, welcome aboard. And Brent? A number of years ago, Brent actually spoke at one of our home dad cons in Raleigh, North Carolina. Coincidentally, the first one that I ever attended.
Yeah, like Matt said, I've been blogging at designerdaddy.com for about 10 years. I'm a father of an 11-year-old. I live in the Washington, D.C. area. Also been active with the Dad 2.0 community. And I've been working with responsibility.org. Just started my second year working with them as one of their parent influencers. And it's been a great opportunity for me to help promote their message, but also to learn a whole lot about myself as a parent and as an alcohol drinker, and how to combine those two in a healthy way.
And with us also, we have Tim McMichael, who is a fellow member of the board of directors here at the National At Home Dad Network. One of the reasons that we brought Tim on is that Tim is one of the dads who can model responsible drinking. I'm kind of out of the discussion on this one, as I am not able to drink responsibly. I'm coming up on 7 years of sobriety myself, so for some people that is the only option. So we brought Tim on as someone who can speak to the drinking or consuming with responsibility. And also, Tim has some kids that are of drinking age. I think your oldest is 19 and your youngest is 6, and there's 4 more between those?
Yep, 4 more. So like some oldest is 19. I got an 18-year-old, 16-year-old, 13-year-old, 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So kind of wide range.
Got your hands full, man.
Oh, yeah, very much. Especially switching to homes. We've been doing distant learning, but I finally switched over to homeschooling, where we're doing more of our own thing, and that's any more reason to push somebody to want to go and have some beverages at night is that, but COVID can't do that right now, really. So
Understood. So, so Sam, one of the things that got me interested in the responsibility.org people was that about a year ago, I went to the Dad 2.0 conference for the first time. And on the opening night, they had the big reception for everybody. And as a non-drinker, I was incredibly appreciative of the fact that you guys set up a non-alcoholic beverage bar where they had, I think it was two, it might have been three different choices. But it was a really nice, like, non-alcoholic cocktail. Like, it didn't taste like a kid's drink. It tasted like a
Right.
grown-up drink.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you say that, Matt. I mean, that really has started to become a movement. We certainly didn't invent that. We just sort of hitched our horse to that wagon. But, there are a number of not only just sort of initiatives that are popping up. One that comes to mind, I think, is called the Mocktail Project. And they sort of strive to do that as well. Many of you may have heard of them. But if you had a sip of one of their drinks, you would have no idea that wasn't some craft cocktail, and that it was in fact alcohol free. And then you move into some of the distillers themselves are actually making non-alcoholic spirits, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it's a real thing. Where you have like Seedlip, you have others. I know there's one that's an alcohol-free Scotch. So this is becoming much more than a trend, and obviously they see there's a market for this, and we see that as something to embrace, because it is another way to make it easier for folks to, even if every now and then you say I'm going to have an alcohol-free night, I'm going to be the DD or whatever it is, but you can go out and still feel part of the group, and not like you're over there sipping on a Diet Coke or water. Which is totally something you shouldn't feel ashamed to do, but it just gives you another option to do that. So we're excited to see that trend popping up, and hope it's looking like it's here to stay. Honestly.
Good. Well, again, I'm not much of the distilled spirits guy, although I have gotten quite into the non-alcoholic beer brewing that seems to be going on now. The days of old duels are long past. This past Christmas, I actually was lucky enough to win in a contest one of 300 some odd bottles of a bourbon barrel aged maple stout.
Wow.
From the Bravas Brewing Company out in California. That was honestly probably one of the best stouts I've ever drank, whether it was leaded or not.
Wow.
And it was fantastic. But it's good to know that there are these other options available, especially as parents, and definitely as stay-at-home dads. We kind of have to be on call. I mean, things go wrong, and you got to step up to the plate at any given moment. So, let's talk about that whole responsible consumption. I mean, Brent, you're a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working for myself from home forever. And then when we became parents, it just made sense, since my husband had a full-time job at a law firm, I became kind of the go-to caregiver. So yeah, and that's been my life, now for 11 years, the last of which has been in quarantine with, the distance learning and all that fun stuff that we're all dealing with. And so, there's definitely been the temptation to want to drink water relief or stress relief, or just to forget about the day. And we're definitely doing more drinking at home. So yeah, the challenge has been to not just go full hog and just try to waste away the day every day. But I've tried to make it fun. Some people have been baking bread. I've been perfecting some of my cocktails. I think I got 5 different cocktail books for Christmas from different people. I've been working on my Dirty Martini, my Cosmopolitan, and my Sazerac, and my Margarita. So those are all kind of my regular rotation, and it makes it fun. It's I don't like to cook. but it kind of becomes like a creative outlet for me. My husband teases me. It's like, why don't you just pour a glass of bourbon? I was like, yeah, that's nice, but I like the creative aspect of it. So kind of like a hobby for me. But again, it's it's almost always done after my kid is in bed, and more just a way to unwind and relax and enjoy the rest of the evening, as opposed to escaping the torment of distance learning.
Yeah, I think many of us know that feeling of that torment.
And I've only got one.
I would say I have two, but my youngest is turning 4 in April, so he's not really in school. So
Right.
I'm doing distance first grade with my daughter and periodically ducking out of the room to make sure that my son is okay. But you hit the nail on the head for one of those things, as you were talking about, the stress level and how it is tempting to turn to, alcohol as a crutch or as a coping mechanism. And, I don't know what other people are using. Me personally, I've developed a really expensive Lego habit since lockdown has begun. My wife will vouch for that. I now have a budget to prevent me from overspending. But, I find sitting down, getting a little bit of quiet, and just doing something that I can actually have control over. Like
Right.
if I follow the directions, it will come out right. It is a huge plus. Sam or Tim, do you guys have any like coping mechanisms that are helping get you through the hard days?
Yeah,
Me with my kids. My kids like the video games, so I've stepped up my Minecrafting game. I learned Minecrafting really, really well. Other than that, cooking and just hanging out with my kids, trying to focus that need for something else besides going out drinking, to hang out with them and spend time with them, because you only get this once in your life. So,
Right.
and if we've been locked up since March, we will go and do like outings or whatever. My 16-year-old leaves to go to work, and then she comes home. By that, we really don't go out anywhere because of the whole COVID stuff. So I kind of want to make this more of an experience for them, that they can look back and remember being fun and saying, we're stuck in the house with him. Which I'm sure they're still going to think that, but try to make
Right.
it as fun as you can for them. So
that's awesome, man. I've gotten pretty good at stress crying. I don't know if you guys
We're going deep now.
Yeah. I thought is this not the venue for that? I'm sorry.
Really?
No, I I think responsibility.org has sort of worked through the quarantine to put together some resources for how to channel that stress constructively and certainly not destructively. But myself, I've just recently discovered this week, actually, you guys are familiar with the Calm app. You've seen
Mhm.
like those ads getting pitched to you on Instagram. They actually have like a series on HBO Max now, which is like different folks. They play all these slow motion nature scenes and have like Morgan Freeman or somebody else on there talking real calm, and it just like chills you out. So I've been doing that. I'm not a dad. I am at home though, so I have half the reason to be here. But I do have a brand new little puppy dog named Teddy, and he is about 13 weeks and has to go pee a lot. So I've upped my walking game pretty significantly. So I think I've actually found that that's helped me sort of just level out too, is just taking a walk around the block. And then just being sure, I switched to decaf, honestly. I'm one of those people. It made a big difference. And just making time to do something at the start of the day and at the end of the day that just sort of centers you and makes you remember, sort of what's important in your life, and that if you don't answer this email right now, the world's not going to end. So just little stuff like that. But highly recommend that Calm series, man. It's pretty cool.
Okay, I have HBO Max. I'll have to check it out.
You need to do
Because
it. They're not
like
paying
everybody
me.
else, we're all looking for something new to watch because we've binged everything that's out there.
Yep.
Yeah, I played my husband walked in. I was playing the first episode of Buffy, which is my favorite show, and I've watched it several times. It's like, oh, we're getting down to that again. I was like, well, Yeah, I guess so.
We
Kind of run
figured
out of
a good
everything else.
place.
But I mean, one thing that's helped me too is, I mean, having worked from home forever and also being online a lot as a blogger and influencer, I already have a big network of virtual friends. But now, like everybody's friends are virtual, and
Yep.
I've kind of made it a point to. I have a couple of friends that are single that I reach out to. We talk at least once a week, sometimes more. You know, I initially started out as, oh, I feel bad for these people who don't have any families or anything to distract them. But in a way, it's become a nice distraction for me, and it's nice way to connect, and we can kind of gripe or do our stress crying or whatever. And it's a nice way to stay connected. But you know, it's kind of like going back to the olden days of making phone calls. You know, like I mean, I grew up in junior high, coming home and calling all my friends on the phone, and now it's kind of like I'm doing that again, but just texting or FaceTiming with friends that I would only see out in person before. But now it's nice to kind of reconnect with them because I know everybody's having a hard time in their own way, regardless of what their struggles are or what their family makeup is or their job or whatever. So.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned, Brent, was that you generally will make a cocktail at the end of the evening after the kids have gone to bed.
Not always, but sometimes.
Okay. Well, how do you talk to your kids about adult beverages?
Well, I mean, he's at the age now where he knows what drunk means, and he'll see stuff on TV, and he'll ask us, you know, at different times, like, "Are you drunk?" You know, or so and so. So it's kind of a funny thing for him. I think for now, kind of what they talk about with responsibility.org is it's like an ongoing conversation, and it's like modeling behavior. And I was thinking back to when I grew up. My dad was a Baptist minister, so there was no alcohol in our house and no alcohol in anybody's house that we knew. And so that was like, it was such a mystery to me. And I think I might have, you know, experimented more irresponsibly as a teenager, more than I would have if I'd been raised to know about alcohol and drink responsibly. That's kind of what I feel like we're doing, is just by whether we're having a dinner after drink, I mean, a drink after dinner or wine with dinner or whatever it is, just showing my son that it's just part of our lives, and it's what grown-ups do, kids don't, and it's not a mystery. You know, it's not hidden away or locked away. You know, that may change as we get older. But yeah, it's just kind of part of our lives, and just kind of say certain things are for grown-ups, certain things aren't. So.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Tim?
With my like the older kids, they understand what I'm drinking. Is like my 19-year-old. Her growing up, she was always very vocal. Like when it came to sex, she was let us know when she was ready, which is good. We're always open with her. We always talk with her. And my wife and I are kind of, I want to say we always compared ourselves not to the new Roseanne, Dan and Roseanne Connor, but the old one back in like the 80s that we grew up with before everything else. We always refer to ourselves as those two because we were just very open about everything. And we didn't, honestly, we make jokes about everything, but we try to keep the doors open for our kids. So like my oldest always knew she could come talk to us about stuff, and there were times she would come talk to me or she'd talk to my wife about things. And like when it came to drinking, my wife's a nurse, and she works for a MAT program, which is they help people wean off drugs with medicine like Suboxone, that kind of stuff. And so she always took the angle of she's going to educate them. Like, you drink at a young age, your mind doesn't stop developing until your mid-20s. So when you drink, you're going to bring that down. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, you can tell them that, but we need to show them like the real stuff. Like, you're going to drink, there's consequences. Whether you get caught being an underage, there's a fine for it. If you're in sports, if you like your sports, you get caught underage, you're out of sports. And I go more the legal angle, which she'll do that too, but yeah, so our oldest, so I always told her, if you're going to drink, drink responsibly. Drink with people you can trust. Do not get in a car with anybody. Do not go anywhere. If you have to leave, call me. I'll come get you, but I'm going to bring you home, and you're not going to like the consequences of it. So it's always we always push her to make the right choices if you are going to drink. So and that's kind of what we're going to do with all our kids when they get older. Like my 6-year-old, my wife will come home, and it's been a stressful time for my wife, which it is for everybody, but I think more for her is because she's seen clients fall off the wagon or whatever, and ones that she's grown a bond with, got to know. So I know it's always hard on her. So she would come home and she would just want to drink to help relax and calm down from her day, which is understandable. So our 6-year-old always referred to it as an adult drink. We don't tell her what's in it or what it is because I don't think she's getting grasp to fully understand it, but she just knows it's an adult drink. And that's one thing my wife always does. She always has her one cup, so she's drinking it, so the kids know that's what mom's drinking out of, so they're not trying to get drinks out of it, and they're not asking, which I've noticed. I guess she's never really brought it up. I think that's what she does, is just so they know. Because most kids usually want to come and have one drink, whatever you're drinking. So, but yeah, so our kids, we try to be open with. We just try to keep the door open. If you want to talk to us, we're going to let them know there's no consequence for asking questions, no consequence for inquiring about stuff, because that's how we learn. So.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Sam, I
Exactly.
I know that responsibility.org does a lot of work with helping parents have that conversation with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious what like advice, what resources you guys have available for parents like us. My oldest is 7, so I've got a little bit of time, but I mean, eventually I'm going to have that conversation with her.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad that I got a chance to hear Brent and Tim talk about sort of their strategies, because one of the things that we know is that parents are the number one influence in their kids' decisions of whether they're going to drink or not. It's not really their friends. It's even above peer pressure. It's just they follow their parents' lead and expectations, and so letting them know that that's not acceptable in our house, and then like Tim was talking about, laying on that foundation where you have a relationship with them enough to where they feel comfortable coming to you and asking you questions about it, and not thinking that it's taboo, and knowing that there's not going to be a consequence for them wanting to know more about this thing that's unfamiliar to them. And Matt, you say, you've got a little time before you have the conversation. It's probably less time than you think, because you said 7 is your oldest. Yeah. So I think we start around 9 years old is what we recommend to just. But it sounds like you've already sort of had these conversations, right? Of like, this is an adult drink, Tim, and that conversation changes along with their growth. So as they get older and a little more sophisticated, you have that conversation again and again and again. It's not one big daunting thing, and that's why it's so important to have that sort of foundation and relationship built, so that you can continue to have that conversation with them as they grow up. And we have, I could take up the whole hour sitting here talking about the resources that we have available for y'all, and for parents of kids of all ages. I mean, from middle school, end of elementary school, middle school, all the way up through college and young adulthood. Those are conversation starters, information, statistics, that sort of thing, to help inform the discussion that you're going to have with them. And then just like simple strategies to give them an out, like you were talking about, Tim, if you get in a situation you're not comfortable being in at a party or something, just call me. I can give you like a code word, or you can text me and I'll call you and tell you you have to come home. I'm coming to get you, kind of thing. So all kinds of strategies like that. And honestly, one of the biggest is helping amplify those little anecdotal stories from parents themselves, right? And sharing that information about, well, this is what worked for me. These are some tips and tricks that my kid and I have worked out, some arrangements. This is the code word that we have, that sort of thing. But for you, Matt, I would recommend our Ask, Listen, Learn program, which you can find at www.asklistenlearn.org. And it's got just a ton of conversation starters, a ton of like fun games and videos that teach kids, sort of what the consequences are. We found that they're really interested in sort of learning about their bodies. And so when you can tell them that, in a fun little cartoon character way, like, this is what alcohol's impact does neurologically, like in your brain, which sounds complex, but it's broken down and the cartoons make it fun. But we see that just among our staff, like when our staff who have kids that are that age show their kids that, they want to keep watching the next one and the next one. They think it's like a Netflix like cartoon series kind of thing. And games are on there. And then, responsibility.org also, we sort of view this as a continuum, right? Where you're having that conversation throughout the different chapters of their life. And we have resources there to help parents move through that continuum as well. And you would just find those at responsibility.org in our underage drinking section. So.
Okay. And I mean, again, I turn 49 next month. Good Lord. It's been a while since underage drinking was something that I thought about. I'm old enough that growing up in Louisiana, the drinking age was 18 for me, not 21. But I mean, I'm assuming that this is still a large-scale problem in this country.
So I'm glad that you said that. It honestly, in the last 30 years, it has gone, I mean, it's pretty much nosedived, right? We're at historic lows now. Each year that the new government data comes out, it's a new historic low, pretty much across every measure that they track
Nice.
underage consumption. So that's really good news. We'll see if COVID played any role in that once we get the next round of data from, different universities and the government itself. So we'll see. But it seems like, when parents talk about this or their kids are getting to high school age, they're like, oh my gosh, this is an epidemic kind of thing. But really the data shows that it's going down and has been for decades now. And we expect that trend to continue. We do sort of see it maybe in the next year or two kind of plateauing almost a little bit. And we'll just have to continue, working with parents and teachers and everyone in the community really to try to keep those numbers going down.
I was gonna say that's shocking to me.
Yeah.
That's and again, I mean, that was one of those things that I didn't think was ever going to go away for kids.
Yeah. Well, we hope one day it does completely go away, right? I mean, I'm sure there's always going to be folks who do that and think it's cool, but I think generally what we've started to see, especially in like the high school population, is just it's not seen as like cool. It's almost like how this is a terrible comparison, but how kids today view smoking. It's like, what? That's gross. Why would you do that? We're starting to see that sort of cultural mindset shift for high school students too. So we'll see if that continues, but I think that has played a big role in it as well.
I'd also like to, I mean, that's news to me too. I'd also like to think that it has something to do with more parents being more open with their kids, whether it's about sex or drinking or whatever, kind of like what Tim was saying and how he's really open with his kids about, you can talk to me about this. There's no bad questions, no wrong answers. It makes me think back to when I'm the oldest of four boys, and like I said, my parents didn't drink. I had no one modeling that to me. All it was, high school kids getting in trouble. So my youngest brother is 11 years younger than me, and I remember having to tell him, I said, if you ever get to a situation where you need to be picked up, you call me. I'm not going to narc on you. You just need to get home safely. And, I wish I'd had that from my parents, but it was more just, don't do it. We don't do it, so you don't do it,
Yeah, well, it's funny because in all of the sort of forums that we've had, it does sort of seem like a generational thing that this having an open conversation with your kids and not trying to make things taboo, but get them appropriately sort of just used to being around it and understanding that there is a responsible way to interact with it and an irresponsible way to interact with it. And I'm your parent. I'm going to show you the way you're supposed to do that, just like I'm going to do with every other thing in your life.
Right. Take away the mystery.
Yeah, exactly. That's something. It's funny because I was the same way. I didn't drink until I was probably almost a little after 20, just because I was really into sports and I didn't want that to influence anything about my performance in sports. You wouldn't know that these days, but back in the day, the glory days. But my dad, we never talked about that really either. I guess we didn't need to because I wasn't doing that, but my friends were. And it just never really came up. So I think it is sort of a new thing, and I've heard the same from so many folks at conferences and things like Dad too. Have told the same stories, and they're like, I don't want to have that. I want to be able to know that my kid can come and talk to me about any topic, no matter what it is.
So that brings to mind the next question is that, hopefully none of us ever run into this, but at some point, what does a parent do if they find out that their kid is underage drinking? I mean, are there like established techniques or scripts that you can use to help like get your kid away from those negative behaviors?
So if that's a question for me, I mean, I think, certainly you hope that you don't have to have that conversation, right? That's a bridge you won't have to cross, but certainly parents have to cross it every day. I think it is a sort of a case by case basis. I mean, it depends, there are different levels of underage drinking, right? If this is something where they've experimented, I think you could revert back to obviously letting them know what's acceptable in your house and what isn't. These are the values that our family believes in, and we expect you to carry on those values and uphold that, and this is not a part of that. And then, carry on with however you deem as a parent to, discipline them as however you see fit. So it's hard to give really like a cookie cutter answer for this. I think it really depends on the kid. I mean, your kid, what's going to be impactful for them to hear and what's really going to stick with them. And for some of them, like me, I hated getting in trouble. So if I'd have done something and I got scolded by my dad, like I was just terrified of being in trouble. I didn't like the vibe. So that would be like one and done for me. But other kids seem to thrive on getting in trouble. So I mean, it really just depends on the relationship you have with your kid, and who they are, really as a person. But I think, it starts. You really don't want it to get to that point, right? You want to have put in a lot of legwork before then. Maybe even starting right now, Matt, 7 years old. You never know. To really drill that home to them and just be like, there's really no upside to doing this, from a physiological standpoint, from a legal standpoint, from a social standpoint, and honestly, just from a feeling bad the next day standpoint. I mean, it doesn't shake out for you right now in your life.
I can see that. Well, what about either one of the dads out there, Tim? I mean, I don't know if you've been through this or not, but
I have my 19. I think she was 17. She had friends spending the night, and they came upstairs one time late at night, and something was just off with them. I knew it wasn't right. Well, then I found out the next day that they were drinking down in the room, which I'm not for drink. I can't say I'm not for drinking. Like Sam said, I always talk about the legalities. You're 21 or not, because anything that is illegal, you can get in trouble for it. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, at least she was home drinking where she was safe. But her and I did have to talk about it the next day, and she was hungover the next morning too with that. But yeah, so it's one of those things. It's just, and it comes down from each kid, like Sam was saying. It depends on the situation. And so she knew I wasn't happy with her for drinking. She did give over the alcohol that she had left, and yeah. So then, if she ever did it after that, I'm not sure. I'm assuming she didn't, because she never really talked about it. Like now she lives in her own apartment. She's 19, and I'm sure she does now. She's on her own, it's her own thing, and it's the same thing we tell her too. Is you're still under 21. You're not of legal age yet, and you can still, there's consequences. You just got to watch out for it. If you're gonna do it, be responsible, and that's all you can really do is push is the legalities. From my end, I just push the legalities of it, and there's consequences for everything you do, and something happens and you're on your own, or not on your own, but you got to take care of it and you got to fess up for it and face it. So
yeah,
I mean, I like your multi-prong approach of like the legal side from dad and the medical side from mom. And I think for me, we're not at that point yet, but what we've been working on a lot is stressing the importance of telling the truth and also of owning up when you've done something wrong. Like I think I tweeted the other day that my son, I think, apologized to me for the first time in his whole life, you know, or he admitted that he recognized me wrong.
Congratulations.
You know, there may have been times when he's like 2 or 3 when he says, "Daddy, I'm sorry," or whatever. But most of the time, it's, you know, it's always passing the buck, or it was because of this or whatever. But he did admit to, like, yeah, it was, you know, I did take too long to get ready the other day, and I'm sorry. And that was like huge. So, I mean, that's kind of what I want to praise him for, to know that, you know, you score big points for being honest and admitting you're wrong, you know, and just letting that build a foundation of for everything.
Right, and that appraisal goes a long way, further than what I think anybody really thinks it goes. So
And he broke up a fight. We had an outdoor play date with some of his friends the other day. All the kids kept their masks on, but they were still wrestling and stuff. But he broke up a fight and said, you know, we just got a little out of hand. Like, who is this 30-year-old in my child's body? That was very out of character for him. But again, just something we praised and said, you know, I really appreciate your maturity, and, you know. But
Well,
awesome.
one of the people that we have watching on Facebook right now, Quetzal, made a really good comment, and he pointed out that, you know, if you tell your kids that they can call you for help getting out of a bad situation, you really have to stick with that commitment to them if you want to be able to keep that strong influence with your kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I can definitely speak for that, because I do remember calling my father at one point when I was around 15 or 16 to come and pick me up. And I'm pretty sure he might have damaged his teeth grinding them so hard on the way home, because part of his stipulation was, if you call me, I will pick you up with no questions asked. And he lived up to it. He really did. Now, granted, he did wake me up at 6 in the morning to mow the lawn the next morning, with glee in his eyes, but he never gave me a hard time about him coming to pick me up that day.
Awesome.
Tim, you said it, you also have a 16-year-old.
yep, got a 16-year-old.
Now, you know, I'm curious about how it's been during the pandemic, because, like, with my son, one thing he's not dealing with as much is that one thing he said he's glad about not being in school is there's nobody bullying him, and there's a lot less fights going on. But I've heard that with teenagers, especially those that are really active in social media, some of that's actually increased because they're all on social media all the time, and, like, I'm worried about peer pressure and that kind of stuff. I know they're not going out to parties and stuff, but just curious how it's been for her.
Well, with her, my wife and I did foster care. It's been about 3.5 years ago. My niece and 2 nephews moved in with us, and this past January we ended up by getting legal custody of them because their mom was going through her own addictions problems, and she just couldn't do it. So with the oldest, she had there's about an 8-year period where she didn't have a parent. She was kind of living, doing her own thing, and when she moved in with us, we had to kind of break her of that. And one of the things we had to break her of was social media, because she was addicted to drama and that kind of stuff. And so she's not on social media, which is probably rare for a lot of kids her age. And I know she's actually gotten better with it, not trying to sneak around trying to get it on us, because she's got her own phone, she's got a job and all that kind of stuff. So that I'm not sure how it's with other ones, but yeah, she's not on social media, and she's a good kid, great kid, good grades. Like I said, we switched her to a full online school where I'm like the learning coach for her or whatever. And that was one of the reasons we switched her to it, is to get away from the drama, because she gets pulled in with the wrong crowd, like the drama and the troublemakers and the riffraff, if you want to refer them to that as that. So yeah, so there's less drama coming from her period now with this whole distance learning, and which I've loved it, because she would come home every day with different drama. So now she goes to work 3-4 times a week at the McDonald's, and she tries to come home with some like any kind of drama she can get, just to kind of spread or whatever. It's like, you just kind of, oh, okay, just kind of shake her head yes. But yeah, she's not on social media and doing have to deal with that. So it's kind of one of those things. So it's actually none of my kids. I don't even think, actually my 19-year-old, I think she might be on Instagram and she's on Snapchat, and that's it. Other than that, she's never been on social media either. So,
Because Sam, when you were talking about wondering what the statistics will be like after the pandemic. That I imagine that obviously there's fewer opportunities for kids to drink, for underage drinking, because there's no parties. There's I imagine a lot less drinking and driving for everyone involved. So
Yeah, I mean, I hope that we see that the numbers bear that out. I mean, the other thing to consider too, we've heard sort of anecdotally, is parents feeling sympathetic for their kids, especially high school kids, or first couple years of college where they're still underage, where they feel like they're missing out on these rites of passages and missing out on that sort of thing with their friends, and who are letting it slide. And so I hope that that's not really an overwhelming mentality among the group. I would be interested to hear y'all's take on that, but yeah, I mean, and the other thing too, right, is that parents maybe before, when they were having cocktails or having a beer or a glass of wine, were doing it after work before they come home, or you guys would wrap up a day, go meet some friends for dinner, and then come back later, and the drinking is happening away from the kids. And now, unless you've put them down to bed and they're of that age, it's happening right there out in front of them if you're doing it. And so that presents two things, right? Maybe an upping in their curiosity, but then also an upping in the opportunities to have a conversation with them about it while you've got the drink out. So I would just be interested to hear sort of what y'all think about the first thing, right? About, oh, they're missing out on all of these things with their friends, and this is such a key point in their life, and they're missing milestones and that sort of thing. And then also, like, having to be at home with them more now, and doing, having a drink at home versus out with an adult crowd.
Well, I know for us, we don't necessarily in our home have that whole like missing out on those rites of passage things. My wife and I grew up as polar opposites of one another. She was a really, really great kid who studied really hard, obeyed the rules, did what her parents told her to do. And
one of
that's
those,
the reason why she went on to college and medical school and is now a doctor and running her own department at a hospital. And I, on the other hand, did the polar opposite of that. And that's the reason why I went to college, left college, and spent 25 years cooking for a living as a chef. I will warn you, Tim, if she's looking for drama, she'll find plenty of it in a restaurant. Guaranteed. But as far as those rites of passage go, I lived through all of those, and I know that they were not like, if I could go back and redo it and still come out on the other side in the same place that I am today, I would change that behavior. Like I don't think longingly back or with, fond memories of, that first time I went out and got trashed. That's not a good thing. So I don't think they would get any sympathy from me on that one.
All right.
Well,
good.
I know. I mean, I've thought about milestones, and I've written about this, talking about how kids are resilient, and I think I wrote about it in a post for responsibility.org recently, and that we always say that kids are resilient, but I think that also that just doesn't happen in a vacuum. That comes because we model it for them, and I try to get a feel for my son, how he's doing, what he's liking, what he's not liking about online school and missing his friends. But we also create, kind of like what Tim was saying, is we create things that are special about this time. Yeah, he's doing a lot more video game playing than he would otherwise. But, we let him get Facebook Messenger for kids. So he's like chatting with his kids a lot. We have special play dates with specific kids that have kind of been in our pod the whole time. And we try to play more with him, play video games more with him, because that's totally his bag. But it's almost like he doesn't know what he's missing.
Yeah.
like I'm on the committee for the fifth grade gift to his elementary school, where they, you know, where they kind of like a senior class gift to a school where they like buy a bench or whatever. So we've been talking about that and how much it sucks that our kids have never even been in the school this year and how hard it is on them. And but to them, it's just how it is, and they're all in the same boat. It's not like there's going to be one kid. Your kid's not going to be the only kid his age who had to suffer through this. So I mean, it's kind of about modeling the resiliency, but also, I'm not gonna harp on like, oh, it's too bad you're missing out on this. I'm just trying to create new kind of special memories within the context that we have.
Right.
Whether that's, I was talking with someone else too about they have a kid who's 17 and they've never been on a date, and another friend who's a teacher. All the kids are missed their junior prom and their senior prom, and those are milestones that I'll be curious to see how these kids deal with it, or what kind of things they do to replace that. Maybe just living through this pandemic is going to be their we're the class of 21. We're like, we're the coolest class ever, because we survived. You lightweights in the prom,
Right. That's interesting, man. That's a good way to look at it. What about you, Tim?
Milestones. I think every kid, every person's different. Everybody's got their own views of different milestones. Like if you look at my 16-year-old and 13-year-old, I know their views and their goals in life for different things are completely opposite. Like my 16-year-old, she watches Grey's Anatomy all the time, and one of her dreams is she'd like to become a doctor if she can. She's not sure she's education, whereas my 13-year-old, his goal is to be a Walmart greeter someday. But if you know Raymond, Raymond's a great kid. Everybody loves Raymond. They meet him, they want to take him home with them because he's just such energetic, so happy. So like I said, I think it just comes out of milestones. It comes down to the kid and the child or the person what their goals are or whatever. And so, I don't know.
Awesome. I want to be a Walmart greeter too. I hope I'm like 65, but yeah, for sure.
Let's I try to put it. That's one of his five things. Fill out a resume. So he's filling a resume to be a Walmart greeter. Okay, whatever. It's your bag. You do it. If you want to go for it, go for it. But his reasoning he goes, I get to say hi and smile at every person that comes in that door. Every year
that's so sweet.
That's who Raymond is. He likes to make people happy.
Wow,
that's sweet. That's awesome.
Well, one other thing that I wanted to bring up is, here we are sitting at the 27th of January, and being in recovery, I'm a part of several different social media groups and the rest of it that focus on sobriety or moderation or that type of thing. And a lot of attention came up this year with Dry January. And one of the interesting things that I saw about it wasn't so much my earlier experiences with this was a whole lot of people who made the decision of, I'm just going to prove that I don't have a problem because I won't drink at all for the whole month. And then on like February the 1st, I'm just going to like binge drink for a week straight. So it never really made that much sense to me. But like this year, I've seen a whole lot of conversations happening where people are discussing, now that I've gone a month without drinking, I'm looking back on my previous habits and kind of re-examining like what I'm using alcohol for or the patterns that I'm following. And there's a lot of people that are like, I'm probably going to go back and begin consuming responsibly, but I'm going to be consuming very, very differently because they actually step back and were able to look from the outside back in.
Yeah. I mean, if Dry January is what causes you to step back and take an assessment of your reasons for drinking, how much you're drinking, how often you're drinking, then that's great. I mean, I think Dry January is beneficial because of that, and that's why it's catching on. I mean, I personally know more people, I feel like this year, that have participated in it than in previous years. But I mean, I think it's fine to do that. I think that if dry January is the only time you're doing that, then that's not a good thing. You need to be cognizant and mindful of how much you're drinking and the reasons for your drinking the rest of the year too. Not just once a month. I'm sorry, one month out of the year. So I think it's beneficial for that reason. I think it has probably brought more attention to the fact that it's okay and it's healthy to take an assessment of your drinking. That doesn't right off the bat mean that you have a problem if you have to have that conversation with yourself. It just means that it's something healthy to do, and I think it's sort of helped to normalize that. But it should be happening much more frequently than just in January. And so, we encourage that folks take often assessments of their drinking, and use tools like the virtual bar that we have, right, which is just an iPhone or Apple Watch app that helps you sort of plan. If you know you're going to have like a Zoom happy hour with some friends, you can say, okay, I'm going to look at this app. I'm going to eat some chicken wings before or whatever, have a slice of pizza before, and I'm going to say I'll have, I don't know, three drinks over the course of this 2-hour Zoom. What's my BAC going to be? Okay, well, that's too much. I'm going to kick it back down a couple. And so you can plan your night out, right? And sort of take an evaluation of your drinking before it even starts. And then once you set that limit and you get a better idea of your own personal limits, because it's different for all of us, right? It depends on, sex, height, weight, age, all kinds of factors, time. And so to get an idea of how alcohol works with your body, it sort of helps you understand your own limits and stick to those. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for dry January. I just don't think that dry January should be the only time that you're having that conversation with yourself.
Yeah, I'd honestly never heard of it until about halfway through January. So, but I mean, I guess I kind of liken it to all the people, kind of the rush that the gyms get, like. People go out and get a gym membership in January, and how they always see a real spike in memberships. And it's, it's a time of year when people kind of reassess their health and their life. And I mean, like you're saying, like, Sam, everybody, like, if it's a tool that they can use to take a look at where they can improve, then I'm all for it. It's it's in moderation and like, so not just you don't treat it like Lent where, you abstain and then go full hog at the end, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Gentlemen, we have reached 5 o'clock. I really do appreciate you guys coming on for us. I'd like to give each of you the opportunity, if you'd like, to share a last little something. Before we go, I definitely want to thank responsibility.org for being willing to come and talk with us and, share their stuff. I noticed that they've linked on the Facebook page to the calculator that he was talking about, the virtual bar, and a few of the other resources. So please feel free to use those. Like all of our webinars, this will be available for replay on our YouTube page for anyone at all once we get it uploaded. So feel free to pass this along to anybody, because this is just the way that we like to give back to the community. So if anybody wants to add anything, by all means.
Yeah, I would just say thank you so much, Matt, for including us on this and for having a discussion with Brent and Tim and yourself about this important issue. I mean, it's continued to go down. It's becoming less and less of an issue according to the data. And the only way to make sure that stays true is by having these conversations and parents going back and having that conversation with their kids. So thank you for doing this. And a shameless plug would just be to check out all the resources we're linking to in the chat, and go check out responsibility.org when you get a chance. And if you've got if anybody watching has any other particular questions, follow us on Facebook and ask us a question or comment on this thread, and we'll follow up with you. But thanks so much for having us, and really been a pleasure talking with you guys.
Yeah, and I just say, like I said, I'm starting my second year working with responsibility.org. And what's great about working with them as a parent influencer is, like, several times a year we'll have like panel discussions with different experts, parenting experts, or people from the alcohol industry or whatever it is. But a lot of the stuff that we end up talking about is really more about conversations with our kids in general, not specifically about alcohol. And it's caused me to examine that a lot and to learn a lot. So, if you want to follow me on Designer Daddy, I'll be writing about it several times this year. So check it out.
I got nothing, Matt.
Well,
You got 6 kids. That's all you need.
It was interesting. It was fun. I was look into the responsibility.org or whatever here. So
Yeah.
well, thanks.
was fun, guys.
I appreciate everybody who's stuck with us and joined us on this one. Our February webinar, we do not have a date set yet. However, we have some exciting news. We've managed to pull something off that we've been trying to do for a really, really long time. We actually have a hairdresser who is going to come in and help us dads learn how to do our daughter's hair, because my braids look awful to the point that my daughter decided she wanted a pixie cut because it was easier.
that's my daughter got her hair cut shorter too.
Yeah.
Better than the quarantine
By
mullet.
all means, as soon as we know anything, we will put the information out about that, and we'll get things locked down, and we look forward to seeing you. So on behalf of the National At-Home Dad Network, as well as responsibility.org, thank you guys all so much for coming to join us. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Fun talking to you.
Yeah.
See ya.
The broadcast of Facebook Live